Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 74th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 74, Training Camp Invasion Aftermath. Clairvoyance was angry. This should never have been allowed to happen. By now the area was swarming with cops, heroes, and WHA security robots. All the students had been recovered and brought back to the campsite for both protection and so they could be checked over by medics. Those who were seriously injured were medevaced to the nearest hospital. Claire watched as her sister Rolls was carried onto one of the helicopters in a stretcher. Mainly because they were worried about the mental effects the heretic's presence would have on her mind. And she wasn't the only one. The entirety of UA Class 1A were being medevaced out of the forest towards the nearest hospital, as were several members of UA Class 1B. Rolls was the only CI girl from 2A being evacuated, and there were only 2 from 2B who were being medevaced as well. 3 if you count the masochist girl who deliberately allowed herself to be hit. One man. No, one thing was able to cause all this damage. She was glad that the imps decided to inform her that the training camp was about to be hit by the heretic, because she might not have been able to get here in time. Plus offering a dreadnought a lift was a bonus since they would need him to deal with the heretic. The annoying part was that she should not have needed to pick him up in the first place. The imps are the guys going after the heretics and protecting the hybrids. Shouldn't they have been able to get here first? And even more annoying was that their intel was not up to date, as they failed to mention the 3 hybrids who were on site alongside her sister. 2 of whom were of the right age to be taken over by a heretic. None of them were on the hybrid database. The imps are normally better at this, but apparently, someone dropped the ball on this one, hard. Now they had 3 scared hybrids, and a class full of students who barely survived an encounter with a heretic. Those kids were so lucky that the heretic was inside a human body. Had that been a Semitic body the heretic was inhabiting, then everyone here would be dead. She would have words with the guys keeping track of the hybrids, but she's not an imp, nor is she a part of their operations or command structure. So she can't. She did, however, know someone who could. The Imperial Dreadnought Sarada, currently masquerading as an underground hero, was busy talking with Eraserhead. A normal conversation wouldn't work, too many people around. But they were telepaths, and they can multitask. What the hell happened? Claire asked telepathically. The prefect took the only available junk ship so that he could play golf in Poland, was Sarada's telepathic response. All others were down for maintenance because someone ordered it. As for why Zaraba was allowed to live for this long, blame the prefect as well. Damn it, Claire cursed. Is he also responsible for Eri, Achiko and Himiko not being on the hybrid database as well? I believe so, but I'll have to check when I get back, Sarada replied. I will be having a word with him about this the next time I see him. This kind of attitude from someone of his station is unacceptable. His actions almost allowed a heretic to take over the body of a hybrid. Claire nodded. How was a man like him allowed to get this posting? He's an utter idiot. Did you know he tried to threaten our Arctic research post? No, I was not, Sarada remarked. I'll look into it. The UKP are our allies, not enemies. We shouldn't be threatening each other. The prefect's actions are starting to look sus. Claire groaned. You've been on Earth for too long. Maybe, Sarada said with a chuckle. How's your sister doing? She's fine, physically. But, it's going to take a while before she mentally recovers from this, Claire replied with a frown. The presence of the heretic affected her greatly. And then there's the fact she killed 20 puppets. Even if it was necessary, she still killed people. Unfortunately, those who have been turned into puppets can only be killed. There is no recovering what the heretics have consumed. How did she get her hands on a psionic blade anyway? Our father gave it to her a few days before she went to CI. Just in case she needed to protect herself. Don't worry, she's been properly trained on how to use it. I just can't believe she had to use it. She did what she needed to do. There is no saving a puppet. Only death can help them. But it still leaves us with several other problems. Like, what do we do about 1A? Claire asked. They had direct contact with a heretic. Nothing we can do, other than help them recover from the ordeal, Sarada replied. Their encounter with the heretic is now seared into their very souls. There will be no forgetting this day, no matter how hard they try. We can't erase their memories of this incident. And even if we could, there were 2 robots present as well, one of which is an alpha level. I doubt we will be able to erase his memories. So, call down a lot of medical personnel to help them recover, soothe the damage to their souls, and tell them to be extra careful about what they say to people about the incident. Because the heretic outright called Achiko a human-alien hybrid. That I will leave to you. You're better with dealing with humans after all. Claire nodded. She may not be an imp, but she was still a hybrid. Someone needed to help keep the masquerade up, especially when there are so few imps in the system. Still, that did leave a few problems, such as one of the students having their soul consumed. I feel sorry for Achiko, Claire said with a frown. Her girlfriend died at that heretic's hands. Don't be so sure about that, Sarada said. Did you not check the student's memories? Izumi still lives. How? Claire asked. I looked into that girl's mind, there was nothing there. Her soul was gone, consumed. Consumed, yes, but not by the heretic, Sarada said. Her quirk, one for all, is surprisingly special. A stockpiling quirk that can be transferred from person to person. But, it's stockpiling more than just strength. The minds, quirks, and souls of all the previous users are copied by the quirk. Think of it as a backup drive. No matter what happens to the current wielder, they'll be able to recover from the backup stored within one for all. I doubt we could erase her memories as long as she possesses it, especially now that her soul is now a part of it. Huh, Claire remarked. That's quite dash. Wait, that would mean it can be passed on to anyone. Even us. Exactly, Sarada said. A heretic would only need to possess her, then, they could willingly pass it on to another heretic. One for all must not be allowed to get into their hands, or ours for that matter. The radicals have already done enough damage. Do not worry, I have a plan to ensure that never happens. Achiko will need to be trained on how to properly control her powers, but, in time, she will become an effective guard for the girl. But, for someone so young to be able to use the destroyer form, even an imperfect version of it, it's quite impressive. And 6 wings as well. Most impressive. I'm just surprised she didn't explode or burn up. You're going to take the girl on as an apprentice? No. Only Mother can decide on who becomes a dreadnought, no one else. No, I will entrust her training to someone else. My sister. Claire raised an eye. You have a sister? Sarada nodded. Indeed I do. She's more than qualified to teach her how to control her powers. Okay, well. She will need someone to help her, and I can't be in Japan for the next 3 years, nor do I have a teaching license. What does she do? She hunts. Claire nodded and decided to leave it at that. Imperial hunters were fucking crazy bastards. Well, I'll leave you to your investigation then, Claire said. You are one of Mother's dreadnoughts after all. And this is your department. I'll try to make sure no one figures out what those kids really faced. Or what you really are. Sarada sent her a telepathic thanks before he focused fully on the conversation he was having with Shota. So, these villains were all brain dead? Shota asked. Sarada nodded. Unfortunately, yes. The villain who took over Hummereyes had a quirk that allowed him to body swap himself with someone else. Somewhere along the line, he learned to take the quirk of the previous host with him as well. Whilst Fleck Turn was his current host, his previous one had a powerful mind-reading quirk that allowed him to, among other things, make people brain-dead and control them like puppets. And the villain who 1A fought against was the villain responsible for the change in Hummereyes' belief? Shota asked. We believe so, Sarada replied. Don't worry. We won't be charging the students for the use of lethal force. The villain in question was already death marked by the WHA, so there will be no charges for his death. The others were but mindless puppets under his control. But I do recommend you put all the students through therapy. That villain was a monster. Don't worry, 1A are already receiving therapy due to a previous villain attack, Shota said. But, Hound Dog is only a guidance counselor, he can only do so much to help them. Don't worry, I know someone who can help, Sarada said. I'll be sure to send her UA's way. Thank you, Shota said, glad for the help. With all the shit 1A has been through, they need a professional to help them. What about the 2 missing people? I'm afraid we haven't found any trace of them, Sarada replied. We've investigated the area you said the light came from but found nothing. And I mean nothing. There's a large area that's devoid of anything. Just dirt, that apparently dates back to the Triassic period. What was Ares' quirk? Rewind, Shota replied. He couldn't keep it hidden during this investigation, not after it went haywire and was boosted by Trigger. Plus she just rewound an area of forest back to the Triassic period, which was scary. She can rewind things back to a previous state. And it was boosted by Trigger when a villain who could shoot needles laced with the stuff hit her with one of them. Sarada frowned. We'll keep searching for them, but don't get your hopes up. A quirk that powerful probably wouldn't have left any remains, he said before a large swarm of cherry blossoms suddenly flew up to them and formed into a small tornado. Out of the tornado stepped Blossom, a much younger Blossom who could barely fit into her costume, carrying an unconscious Eri. Eri! Inko shouted as she rushed over and held the young girl. Is she alright? What happened? Her quirk went berserk. She lost all control over it, Blossom replied. It is a good thing that I took her as far away as I could, otherwise we'll all be dead by now. Erased, reduced to nothing. But, despite my best efforts, I was unable to escape all her quirk's effects and was made much younger. Shota facepalmed. Of course Blossom would be reverted into a child after that stunt she pulled. Inko breathed a sigh of relief, glad that both of her children, just try and tell her Eri isn't her child, were safe. But, she couldn't help but notice that the girl's tongue was now black. That was caused by the damage the drug did to her blood, Blossom said. It'll return to normal after a few days, so she's not stuck with it. That's a relief, Inko said, glad that Eri wouldn't be stuck with it. Are you alright, Blossom? Shota asked, looking at his now much younger co-worker. I am fine, Blossom replied calmly. But, I may need a new hero costume. My current one no longer fits me. Shota groaned. Are you sure you are capable of continuing to be a hero? You're in the body of a 6-year-old. Blossom looked at her co-worker, an unimpressed look hidden behind her mask. I will kick your arse till next year if you even so much as insist I take time off due to becoming younger. I will make Gran Torino kicking All Might's arse to the moon and back look like an adult scolding a child for breaking an expensive pot. I will fuck you up, boy. Shota gulped and took a step back. He almost forgot who Blossom was for a moment. We'll have to have you two checked out at a hospital, Sarada said. And I won't object to it, Blossom said. Ares' quirk was boosted by Trigger. We have no idea what kinds of effects it will have on either of us. Especially on Ares. Trigger can have nasty effects on children. Shota nodded. Too many times he had to stop a kid who took Trigger just to prove that his quirk wasn't weak, only for the ordeal to irreversible damage their bodies. There was a sudden groan from the young girl. A moment later she slowly opened her eyes and looked at Inko. Inko. Inko's heart couldn't take it. Her hand covered her mouth as tears started to fall from her eyes. Eri said her name, she said it, not thought it. She could speak again. She burst into waterfalls of tears as she hugged Eri tightly. She was just so happy. TT too tight, Eri said. A also, W wet. Isn't she supposed to be mute? Shota asked. She must have regrown or rewinded her throat to a period of time before it was removed from her, Blossom suggested. But we should have her checked out as well. Once Inko has stopped crying, that is. How long will this last, by the way? Shota sighed. Kana said that it should last a few minutes. Or several hours, depending on how happy she is. The group looked down at Inko, air, and the large puddle of water forming around them, which was rapidly growing in size. Yeah, this was going to take a while. Flashback. Izumi stood at the edge of the building, tears falling down her eyes as she looked down at the pavement below. All Might had only left a few moments ago, and with him, her dream of becoming a hero. Crushed into fine powder. She should have known that she couldn't become a hero. Not without a quirk. Everyone had told her. Her teachers, everyone at school, Kaken. And now, All Might himself told her that she couldn't be a hero. They were all right, she was nothing but a useless Deku. You know, if you really want to be a hero that badly, there might be another way. Just pray you'll be born with a quirk in the next life and take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Katsuki's words echoed within her mind. Would anyone miss her? Would anyone care that a useless Deku like her killed herself? She was useless, good for nothing, worthless. Deku. Without a second thought, she closed her eyes, let go of the railing behind her, and fell. No one will miss me was the last thing she thought before her head hit the pavement below. Her eyes suddenly shot open. Before her was a very tall and thin man with long limbs and fingers, short blonde hair, and green eyes, crouched down in front of her. There we are, the man said with a friendly smile. Welcome back to the land of the living. Izumi blinked before she looked around. She was leaning against a wall, her clothing was splattered with blood. Her blood. Izumi started to panic. How was she alive? Why was she alive? Shouldn't she be dead? The way she fell, her head should have cracked open like a watermelon. Hey, calm down. The man said, desperately trying to calm her down. Izumi did not calm down. She shrieked, cried, and tried to fight the guy before her. The shock of surviving her ordeal confused her, causing her to lash out. Hey, listen to me. The man said, looking directly into her eyes. You will obey me. Izumi stopped struggling and relaxed, her breathing slowing down. I will obey, she said, her voice monotone. The man breathed a sigh of relief, before cursing. Really don't like doing that, but needs must. Alright now, listen to me. When you wake up, you will not remember hitting the ground, dying, or me reviving you. Instead, you will remember me catching you with my quirk, which you will believe is inertial dampening. You did not hit the ground and die, you were saved before you hit the ground. Also, you will not try and kill yourself again by jumping off a building. Do you understand me? I understand, was Izumi's monotone replied. Good, the man said. Now, you will wake up in 3, 2, 1 he said before he snapped his fingers. End of flashback. Izumi's eyes shot wide open. That was Isa Tsuneo. But that wasn't how she remembered that day going. Isa saved her, he caught her before she hit the ground. Her suicide attempt failed. He saved her. Didn't he? She looked around. She was lying back in a hospital bed in a nice, clean white room with 2 windows. There was only one other bed in the room, one that Achiko was lying in. Her arms were covered in bandages. If you fall, I will be there to catch you. Always. Achiko's voice spoke into her mind. The promise she made the day they met. And where Isa failed, Achiko didn't. She caught her when she fell. Hey, you're finally awake, Durandal said, standing up by the bed beside her. Durandal, Izumi said quietly. Where are we? Ender National Hospital. Hero Ward, Durandal replied. Everyone from 1A is here as well. You all took a bad beating. Don't worry, Recovery Girl is coming to help with your physical recovery. What about Eri? Izumi asked, worried about her little sister. She's alright, Durandal replied. She sent me a telepathic message just before we left saying that she was okay and was with Blossom. Izumi breathed a sigh of relief, glad that Eri was alright. You were out for a while. What happened? Durandal asked. I don't dash flashes of something, facing down an endless black, hungry void before being dragged away from it by 7 people. No. I don't even know what that thing was. What happened? That villain grabbed you and discarded you like a ragdoll, Durandal explained. Not sure what he did, but it pissed Ochako off to no end. She went all angel on the guy, complete with 6 wings. 6. That's 4 more than what Rolls had. You then got up and used gear shift on the villain's heart, putting it in reverse. Killing him. Izumi froze, a cold shiver went down her spine as a low whine escaped her mouth. IK killed someone? She squeaked, horrified by her own actions. Durandal nodded. I don't think it was you who did it though. Your eyes were a different color and your speech pattern was different. Like someone else was at the wheel. Izumi just stared at him, her eyes blank. She killed someone? It didn't matter if someone else was in control at the time, she still killed a man. Durandal instantly went into comfort mode. Izumi, if you're worried about this affecting your hero career, don't worry. I got word that the guy was death-marked, so dash. I still killed him. Izumi cried. It doesn't matter how dangerous he was, or who was in control at the time, or if it was to protect my friends. I still killed him. I ended someone's life. Durandal lowered his head. Yeah, I guess that would be the problem. You're nice, kind, a cinnamon roll. You just aren't capable of taking a life. That's why you tried to cut that man's head off, Izumi said. To save us from the pain of taking a life? Durandal nodded. I was made for war, Izumi. It's a core part of my programming and design. Killing for me is easy. You, and your classmates, on the other hand, are too young to carry the burden of taking a life. Especially you, Izumi. Killing goes against your ideals. If only that bastard didn't have that reflect quirk, which will become very handy since I can emulate it, I would have been able to spare you from this pain you're suffering from now. Izumi nodded before she laid back in bed and looked up at the ceiling. I know it needed to be done, that there was no other way. But, why did it have to be me? Why did I have to be the one who killed him? I'm sorry, Izumi. I don't know the answer to that, Durandal said. But I can promise you this. The next time you are faced with a life or death situation, where there is no choice but to kill the villain, I will be the one to do it for you. I failed this time. But next time I won't. I will protect you. Nothing will change that. Izumi smiled slightly, grateful that Durandal was faithful and always by her side, even if it was somewhat forced due to his programming. She wished she could turn that forced him to be loyal to her. He deserved to be free to make his own choices, not be enslaved to the programming of a madman. Durandal, can you do something for me? Izumi asked after a while. Can you check to see what Isa Tsunio's quirk was? Inertial dampening, Durandal replied. Can cancel out the inertia of anything he touches. Revive, Izumi said, tears starting to form around her eyes. His quirk was, revive, not inertial dampening. I died that day. He didn't catch me, he brought me back to life. Tears slowly started to form around her eyes. He didn't save her, didn't he? He lied about his quirk. He didn't catch her, he just brought her back to life after dying. Why? Why did he revive her? After everything that had happened to her before that point, why was she worth bringing back? Yes, she was worth something now, even if it wasn't much. But back then she was worthless, useless. Quirkless. Out of the countless people who died on that day, why was she the one brought back? Inertial dampening wasn't his quirk? Durandal said, sounding confused. How? Why lie about his quirk? And how do you know this? Because the ability to revive someone is extremely powerful, Izumi said with a frown. Think about it, even though I don't know the mechanics of it, he still brought me back to life. Such a power, to revive the dead, is absurdly powerful. A lot of people, powerful people, would want to get their hands on the man who uses that quirk. So, he must have kept it hidden. As for how, for why I only just remembered it. ISA hypnotized me to forget what happened, probably to also forget that he used his real quirk on me, she said. He told me I would not remember hitting the ground, dying, or him reviving me. That instead, I will remember him catching me with his quirk, that I would believe is inertial dampening. He also told me to not try and kill myself again by jumping off a building. Durandal lowered his head. Guess he must have been worried about you trying again. But that's still a very bad thing to do, hypnotizing someone to forget something traumatic like that. That's not good practice right there. I'm starting to question the man's practices because that's not a healthy thing to do to someone. It may sound good on paper, but in practice, if the person ever remembers the truth, they're going to suffer more. Still, how did you suddenly remember all this? Izumi closed her eyes. I don't know. I just remembered it. I think that thing we faced may have done something to me that made me remember, she said before curling up and shivering. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Please, change the subject. Durandal nodded, realizing that carrying on was only going to do more damage to an already damaged mind. So, why do you keep calling that guy a thing? He asked. That was just a guy with an annoying quirk and the powers of a Semitic. Because that man wasn't a man. It was a thing, Izumi replied with a shiver. You didn't feel it, Durandal. You're a robot, not a human. You didn't feel that thing's presence. It was horrifying. I just wanted to get as far away from that thing as possible. But I couldn't, I was just too terrified to move. What even was that thing? I think we should ask Rolls, because that was clearly a Semitic hybrid of sorts, Durandal said. We need to develop a means to fight such individuals. Because that guy kicked all of our arses. Izumi nodded. That thing was terrifying, and it was clear it was just toying with them. It could have killed them all as easily as breathing. They needed a way to fight such beings, because right now, they needed a way to protect themselves from these Semitic and Semitic hybrids. Fucking bullshit alien psychic powers. She was glad that Mate and the others now knew about the existence of aliens, because now she can ask her to make stuff to protect them from these aliens and their non-quirk powers. The problem was that they all knew about One for All now. What do we do about One for All? She asked, worried about how her friends and classmates would react to finding out she was a fraud. Later, Durandal said. We can worry about them knowing about it later. Right now you should rest and recover. Besides, you're not the only one who had a big secret about them revealed today. I think most of them are thinking the same thing, how the others will react to their secrets being revealed. Izumi turned to look at Durandal and nodded. She wasn't the only one who had secrets revealed by that thing. She wasn't the only one who was wondering what the others were going to feel about what was revealed about them. Apart from Minoru, who didn't have shit revealed about him. Honestly, that might be the first time she felt jealous of the guy. She rolled her head over towards the other bed. Achiko was still sleeping peacefully. Is Achiko okay? As far as I can tell, she is, Durandal replied. The doctors told me to call them the moment she wakes up. There are a few things they want to tell her. Her body was badly burnt by whatever she did. She got very angry at that guy. Izumi nodded, slightly wishing she had seen it. Again, why did she find angry Achiko hot? She sighed before she closed her eyes, deciding to take Durandal's advice. She needed to rest, her body hurt like hell, both her legs were broken, and she was mentally exhausted from having to face that monster and finding out the truth about her suicide attempt and what Isa had done. It was a shame he was dead. She had so many questions for him. Such as why he thought it was a good idea to make her forget about successfully killing herself? But later. Right now she needed rest. Rest sounded good. She breathed out deeply and went to sleep. Izumi's eyes opened suddenly, finding herself in a large gray room with 9 chairs. Each one had someone sitting on them. She recognized each of them. The vestiges, the previous uses of One for All, even Toshinori's incomplete vestige. And she was sitting down with them, on a chair of her own. Well, ninth, the first user said. I wish this was under better circumstances, but... Welcome to One for All. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 75. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.